Ladies and gentlemen, you are more than welcome to another episode of installment of the Coffee at 11 show. Delighted to have you all here this morning, and in particular delighted to have my very special guest and the guy I've known for some years now, Aodan Enright from Cork. Aodan, please say hello and show us that fascinating mug.
Good morning, everybody, and good morning, Colm. This is me with my Mickey Mouse mug, which I drink of every day to remind me of who I am. So it keeps me grounded.
I love it. I love it. Aodan, it's wonderful to have you. And actually, it's funny. I remember years ago somebody said they referred to somebody's business as, "Oh, that's a bit Mickey Mouse, right?" But come here, have you ever seen the Disney balance sheet?
I tell you, I'd swap places right now.
There is nothing wrong with Mickey Mouse. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, before I bring the man himself in, let me just introduce you briefly. Aodan Enright, business name Smarter Egg, and this man is one smart egg for sure. What does your business do, Aodan? Executive coaching and facilitation. How long established? 12 years. Employees, just one egg at present. I love that. I met Aodan some years ago. I was told that you need to meet this guy, and poor old Veronica Keneally, God rest her, late and great of Veronica Snacks, introduced us, and we had a cup of coffee and we realized that we were both shared a passion for I suppose, teaching through story. So Aodan is an executive coach and facilitator based in Cork, Ireland. He's also founder of Smarter Egg, a community of professionals bonded through thousands of hours of facilitated conversations, peer circles, and offsites. He works with organizations and individuals, business owners, freelancers, and professionals in a coaching capacity, and regularly gives talks to events and corporate audiences. Aodan is also well known for his interviews with high-performing people, no pressure on me, some of which are available to view on smarteregg.com, and we'll put that into the chat box later. And here's something interesting, another first on the Coffee at 11 show, something nobody knows about Aodan. He once worked at the European Space Agency. Wow.
That's right. You asked me to reveal a secret, and that's most people would be shocked at that one now. A spacer, they'd say, that's for sure, but no, real pro, yeah.
I love it, a space cadet in real life. Delighted to have you. Aodan, over to you, my friend. Take us right back. Who is Aodan Enright? Go way, way back, as far as you want to go, and bring us up to, even through European Space Agency, up to when Smarter Egg began 12 years ago, please.
Beautiful. I'm glad to do that, Colm, and thanks again for having me join your lovely group this morning. It's funny, as you were describing, what I do, even though we're only 2 months into this pandemic, we're recording this on the 12th of May, that it almost feels like it's as in the past as some of the things that I'm about to talk about from 30 years ago and so on. But that's, I guess, just the nature of where we are right now. So to answer your question, what did I do before I did this? Well, I did a lot of things that were completely and totally unrelated to what I'm doing. When I started off, my first career, so to speak, was in technology. So I spent a number of years working in microelectronics, I guess, is the best way to describe it. The spacer phase that I went through, or some might say that I'm still going through, with the European space people based in the Netherlands, in a beautiful seaside resort called Noordwijk, was part of a master's thing that I was doing in what was called then the NMRC, National Microelectronics Research Centre, which is now called the Tyndall Institute, which is based in Cork, and it's one of the hubs of microelectronics and other types of technological research. So I was very much that kind of person, and that got me roles in industry, in engineering functions and things like that, and that then allowed me to enjoy as a 20-something a nice life in the corporate world, which brought me to live for a few years in the United States. And then when I came back from the US, I started into the kind of managerial / leadership path within the corporate world. So that was kind of like the second phase of my career to this point. I'm still only a young pup, so I still, you know, we're only kind of warming up here, really. And that then put me on a slightly different path, in that rather than being obsessed with, you know, how things work at the micro level, I became more and more interested as, you know, how do we operate as human beings? So that really was the start, I think, of the path that brought me to the work that I'm doing today, Colm. So I worked, my last role actually in the corporate world was leading what they call business kind of process excellence, operational excellence initiatives in an organization, which was things like lean thinking and lean manufacturing and Six Sigma and things like that. And a lot of that was, you know, beginning to dabble into the psychology of how people behave and how we change and how we react to change, and the various resistances therein. So actually when I started my own business in 2008, I actually initially wanted to set up a consultancy, just basically go out on my own to do that kind of work, which was about, you know, business process improvement and all that kind of stuff. But but things were about to take a twist. So that's your cue for the next question, Biggie.
And ladies and gentlemen, you're watching a true pro in action here, right? This is like interview tennis. This is going to be great, right?
Yeah. Geez, yeah. Well, wait till I turn it on you. I'm being nice so far. Go on.
Remember Ian Hannon has the eject button. Right?
I see that. I better put up my man here straight away.
Okay, come here. Before we go any further, this is wonderful, right? Just before the show, folks, for anybody that weren't here just before 11, we were talking about what's the weather like, right? And we were all saying, it's grand, right? And my man here, electronics engineer background, space agency, he says, it's about 3% cloud cover.
That's right.
12 or 13 degrees, right?
That's right.
And that's how you describe a grand day for electronics engineer.
That's it. That's the spec.
And then we get into the whole lean stuff and the psychology of process and all the rest of it. So I'm loving this. I'm really loving it. And I love this part of the show because we get to know the guest a little bit deeper, because it puts a context on the story, puts a context on the journey, right? So you've gone through your young pup phase and you're now about to get serious, grow up and start your own business. I'm curious, why did you give up the corporate world to start your own business?
Yeah, so like a lot of people who are looking to make career changes, Colm, and this is the nature of the conversations that I would still have even with people who are in that domain, is that there are push factors and there are pull factors. So there are things that are drawing you away from what you're doing, saying, you know, I'm fascinated by this, I'd love to do that, my passion lies here, those kind of questions. And then there's kind of push things like, I am sick of this stuff, or, you know, I can't believe that this, or I don't want to do this anymore. So it was like a lot of those things. You know, I had just a combination of feelings about it. It was something that was in my mind for about 18 months before I did it. And I think possibly what kind of gave me escape velocity, that's another space term, is I was doing a lot of training within the corporate role. So, you know, this classic scene in a large company where you're, you know, working with a group, a dozen or 20 people for a day or 3 days or whatever, and you're bringing them through this stuff. And a number of people were making these little comments saying, geez, you're in the wrong job. Or why wouldn't you do that full time? You know, this kind of stuff. And at the start, I was minorly insulted by it. But then as time went on, he's like, well, you know, maybe there's something. And then, well, this is a candid enough admission, which obviously I'm all about honesty and openness, so here it goes. But we were hiring a lot of external consultants at that time to come in and do various bits and pieces. And I was looking at some of the stuff that was going through the budget, and I was going, how much are they getting for the weeks? Jesus, that's not bad, right? So, you know, I did a little bit of maths on the back of an envelope one day and went, Now, of course, I needed that naive thinking to give me what Michael Gerber, that famous author, calls the entrepreneurial seizure, that all of a sudden then you're unsettled in what you're doing and you have to do this, and then, you know, and it's never right until you start your own thing. So that's what kind of lit that flame, right or wrong, and then I bounced out onto going into the big wide world.
I love it. Entrepreneurial seizure. I think I had
Oh, yeah.
it myself in, when did I jump ship? 1998 jump ship eventually. Had one of them, you know, it was building for a while. Was yours building for?
Yeah, a couple of years. You know, you just knew something had to change, and then, you know, little small circumstances add up to a big thing, and the next thing you know. Now, of course, I was superbly timed in that I started out on my own at the start of 2008 at on the crest of a wave when everybody was hiring everything, and within 3 or 4 months it was like, you know, so that was great timing.
And what's the space term for that?
We don't talk about that. That's when it goes wrong. That's descent.
And is that descent with the DESC or DISS?
There's a little both of that go.
These are the questions.
That can go on if you're, or the descent, or the descent can happen if you're not, you know, doing it wrong, I guess. But it's all part of the human condition too.
It's great. It's actually, it's great to be sitting here looking back on it, dare I say, for both of us, because I assume, and I hope this is the case, that for you it wasn't a bed of roses as it wasn't for me once I jumped ship with no parachute. Do you want to tell us about those early years?
Yeah. So like I was like in the first couple of years, there was a lot of figuring out what I wanted to be when I grew up. By the way, that's an ongoing process. I enjoy having those discussions with people in their 60s, by the way, and they do. But the thing about that was that I just, you know, obviously what I initially thought I might do, I changed my mind, which wonderfully I was able to do. And I started doing about 4 or 5 different things, none of which at that particular moment added up to a career, but at least 2 of those things led to a proper career over time, so to speak. And one of the things I did in 2008 was I spent a year, 2008, 2009, at the Smurfit school in UCD doing executive coaching. Now, when I say studying executive coaching, now the doing it is part, obviously, of the work too, but that was very different to the other side of the stuff I was doing, which was very much, you know, process-based and facts and figures, and, you know, having those kind of conversations. Like, for example, I had some crazy conversations early on when if I'm sure there are people on the call this morning that either have been involved in some form of coaching or are friendly or work with people who've done it. But when you're doing any kind of coaching qualification, you have to do a set number of coaching hours as part of it, whether it's like 60 hours or 80 hours. That sounds small, but that takes months to get through. And one of the biggest issues is who will you do the coaching with, right? Because you're supposed to do it with at least a dozen other people. And like in 2020, we're a lot more in touch with our feelings. But in 2008, I know that seems recent, but different world. So there was this guy who I had a meeting with, and he was asking me this thing, and, you know, he was asking me to do this and that, and I said, okay, maybe. So I said, look, I'm doing this coaching thing, you know, I'm available to do some pro bono hours. Jesus, who doesn't want pro bono, right? A great hours. And your man went as white as the shirt that I'm wearing now. And he says, is that when you get into the head stuff? He goes like this to me. I was like, it might be, yeah. And then and I was like, he was like, oh, jeez, I'm meeting a fella now in 10 minutes. And now he's gone. And that was the end of that. So it's not for everyone, right? It is not for everyone. Not everyone wants to have a conversation where you might get into stuff that you like brushing under the carpet on a regular basis, and you like to keep it there for whatever reason. So that was fascinating.
That's a great story. That encapsulates a whole amount of stuff in one story. I love that. I get into the head stuff.
Oh yeah, geez, the head. Mind
All of
man.
a sudden, your man had a week free, but all of a sudden he was busy in 10 minutes.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
By the way, multi-millionaire, very successful business, employed a lot of people. So, that's
Anyway,
work.
everyone's their own. It's all good. Great. Like it's great stuff. So I met you through the Smarter Egg. Well, I was sent to you by Veronica.
That's right.
Then I got involved with your Smarter Egg network briefly, which is fascinating. Tell us about the Smarter Egg network and your White Horse events.
So the Smarter Egg network kind of ran from, what are we now? We're 2020, ran from about 2014 to 2018 in a formal, structured way, but it had been building up for a number of years before that. So one of the things that I was doing was, and again, when I was talking a minute ago about the 5 things that I was involved in the first couple of years that kind of went somewhere, I was involved in a project with 2 characters in 2008. Actually, it was probably the first paid gig I did after going out on my own. A gentleman by the name of Ron Immink and Yankee Fackler. I'm not sure if people on the call today may have heard of those names. Ron is still very active in starting your own business circles or entrepreneurial circles as an author and also as a facilitator. But the lads had come up with this idea called Book Buzz, right? And the simple idea behind Book Buzz was you would take a fascinating business book, and I swear to God you didn't practice this, but this at the time was one of our books. So what you'd do is you'd give this to a corporate group, let's say a leadership team or whatever, and say, lads, read chapter 3 of this. It won't take you more than 20 minutes or whatever. And we'll come in on Tuesday week at lunchtime and we'll facilitate a 90-minute conversation about that. And that will lead to all manner of insights being generated, and it will kind of lubricate the processes of change and all that kind of stuff. So that format, which unfortunately ran dry because of the downturn in later 2008, meant that, again, what is that cliche column about necessity being the mother of invention or whatever. So faced with, not, a virtually silent client list at that point for that type of work, I tried to apply it to a small business owner audience instead. And I experimented with that in various forms for a few months until I got traction and I got some people to get involved in it. And would you believe that led then to a series of those groups. So basically what it involved was, and as it happens, that break from the pack book that I took, the late author Oren Harari's wonderful book from 2005, was that these, let's say there were 10 people in the group, and they would meet every fortnight for 2 hours, let's say from 6 to 8 or whatever, and it would be very nice, be lovely coffee and all that kind of stuff that you enjoy, Colm. And I would facilitate a discussion with them. But of course, the books were Trojan horses. The books were just a mechanism to get people to engage with each other and also to engage with the realities of what they were doing. So that was the kind of the secret to it. And that, would you believe, led, there was 10 and then there was another 10 and then there were 10 tens. So all of a sudden then there were 100 people that were floating around. Now some of the groups we kept meeting in different forms, and it just became this kind of ongoing facilitation of conversation. And that then ultimately led to what was the Smarter Egg network, where I tried to move that cohort of people that I was working with into a kind of it basically was a membership-based system. So I tried to fuse that learning piece and that development piece, professional/personal development piece, with the idea of broadening your network. And that intersected the corporate world, the freelancer world, and the owner-manager cohorts. And that ran for about 5 years properly before I started to unwind it about 18 months ago. So that was a fantastic time because, you know, that, as you said at the start, that led to thousands of hours of amazing engagements, and it led to all manner of extra stuff like the White Horse events, and you know, it was wonderful. So that was that.
I'm loving it. I'm loving it. You know, it's been an evolution,
Yeah.
rather than a revolution. You know, it's been evolving, and you've been going with the flow. And it's really interesting for me to hear this, Aodan, because you know, you start something, you've got getting it to grow, and then you admit it there, you start to wind it down because things are obviously, for whatever reason, changing. I'm really curious about that because I do think most things exist for a reason and for a season, and then we got to keep developing and growing. So congrats. We were chatting in advance of you coming on the show here, and really thanks for having you on. It's a pleasure. Let's just give you a round of applause because you're definitely one smart egg, right? You live up to your moniker.
I don't know about that.
One cheeky smart egg.
Yeah.
But look, it's great having you on. We were chatting, you and I, and we were talking about the fact that once again, because of COVID, we're into this.
Yeah.
Except I think this time it was more.
Yeah, right. No parachute.
No parachute. And you were very honest with me about the dilemma you had around invoicing. Would you mind touching on that? I think it's a very interesting one. Yeah,
so like this is an issue for a lot of people in the coaching world. You know, virtually, like some people in who do the work that I do work exclusively with corporates. Some are exclusively with the entrepreneurial world, and some are a hybrid like myself. And one of the things that I struggled with in the first few weeks, aside from the fact that trying to run a reasonably hectic solo business while having my two angels who you saw at the start of the call, and trying to do all that just became difficult. So I let a few things slip, and then I was faced with a decision one day saying, right, I have my invoicing to do here. And I realized that I was having conversations with some people who were telling me how much money they were losing and how bleak this COVID thing was going to be for them, and how, you know, they were looking at potentially closing businesses and all this kind of stuff. And there were two schools of thought that I was getting from people who I trust, who were saying, look, you invoice because you're doing the work, and people then, you know, it's up to them what they do with the invoices. They've got lots of other invoices that they mightn't be able to pay. Or you just say, look, while this is going on, not so much that it's on the house, like, but I mean, you know, we're just not talking about that piece of it, because it's not business as usual either. Like a lot of the work that I would do in terms of facilitation, we're in a room, it's a behind closed doors thing, and it's a kind of a sacred environment. And as wonderful as the technology is, the Zoom meeting is not quite the same. It's just, you know, whatever about intimacy, it just, you know, it lacks a certain amount. So it's a different game. And my individual coaching, most of that is done outdoors. So my thing in the last couple of years was to bring people out for walks. Now, it's more structured than it sounds, but that's half of it, is just to bring people away from what they're doing, bring them outdoors. And, you know, and there's even a process to how we do that in terms of, you know, getting to the nub of what it is and agreeing actions and all that kind of stuff. But none of those things were possible when I was sitting in this lovely little room, and I just felt, Colm, right or wrong, that I was going to take an invoice holiday for however long it lasts. Obviously, it can't last forever. And it just allowed me to sleep better at night. So I mean, there are people who are listening to me, you know, going, you are like your man on the cup, in terms of that's no way to be doing it. When there may be other people that think that's the right thing to do, and I understand that. But again, like, this is a big thing that which is at the heart of coaching work, is alignment to values. So what allowed me to sleep well at night And that was what allowed me to sleep well at night. Now, that might change, Colm. In 6 weeks from now or 8 weeks from now, it might be a different feeling.
Yeah. Yeah, listen, thank you for that. I'm really glad you mentioned that in passing when we were chatting, and I'm glad you went there today, because the whole idea of this, what has become the Coffee at 11 show, it was just a COVID idea it was actually born out of me thinking I was going to have to bang on every Sunday about something I didn't learn this week in life.
Yeah.
And I thought, how am I going to get out of this? Because I've been doing that for several years, every Sunday. It was always something that I bumped into during the week, sparked a thought.
Yeah.
It have even been an Aodan Enright blog. You need to check out this guy's blog, by the way, on a Sunday morning. But anyway, so I thought, how can I get, do this? So I thought, well, try to invite some other who's on, right, to have a chat, see where it goes. And it's turned into something.
Well done. It's great. Fair play to you. One of the things just from our conversation yesterday that I admire greatly is your consistency and persistence, which are two different things, but that when you put them together, they're very powerful. And I can see from looking at all the faces there, and there was a few nods, that is appreciated. So well done, Colm, and thanks for doing that.
Yeah, thank you. It's not for that reason. Thank you very much. It's not. Didn't do it for that reason, but there's something happening which is lovely, and I'm delighted and very honoured that it's happening. But anyway, you spoke about a couple of things there. You spoke about the sacred space. Love that idea, right? But we were talking about in this time we need to serve, not sell. We need to serve, not sell. We need to reach out, and I think that's what you're doing. And of course, there are two schools of thought. Somebody's saying you need to reach out with your invoice, and others are saying you need to reach out and put your arm around their shoulder. And for what it's worth, I happen to fall on that side of the fence, right? It's a long road ahead. It's a long road ahead. My dad has always said, stop selling, start serving. And I think, I want to applaud you for that. I think you made the right decision because despite the advice you got that it's just one more invoice that they have to decide what they're going to do with, it's now one less invoice that they've got to worry about. Okay, so anyway, there you go. Yeah. Right, fascinating, and we could stay all day. Post-COVID, what's it looking like for you? What are you hoping for?
It's very hard to know because of all the things that we just spoke about there. Like, for example, one of the things that has been a mainstay of the work that I do for the last 4 years are these offsite days. And this is a thing that started in the Smarter Egg Network era and has sustained out of it. And basically it's this idea that busy professionals, you go for a day, I facilitate a day, we typically go to a location like at a beach hotel or somewhere out of the way, and we get out for walks, and we do some reflection stuff, and we get into some gently challenging conversations. That has been a great source of, it has been a great source of learning for me, but it's been a great line of business for me. And I'm getting questions from people, how are we going to do that virtually? How can we do that virtually? And my honest answer is, I don't know, but we'll try to experiment with a few bits to try and do it, not in a kind of conventional way, but to try and come at it from what would give us the greatest return on our invested time given. And here's the thing, there are plenty others that are just like me, hoping that the door here doesn't burst open with one of the kids coming in saying I need this or I need that, or so-and-so's done this to me or whatever. So how do you get someone into that kind of reflective space when they're only 30 seconds away from a family member abusing them, which is not conducive, right? So I mean, there's all this practical reality that we just don't know. So we have to kind of experiment our way out of it, Colm, I think is the simple answer. And most days I'm excited about doing that. I do bits to prepare for that. But there are other days where I go, oh, geez, like next week, because it's hard to keep that buoyancy when there's so much uncertainty and the news isn't great, really. So, so knows is the answer.
I was talking with some people earlier. We've got our own little sacred space running called wigwam.ie, and it's that same principle, bringing people into a room together, if you like, albeit a virtual room. And we were talking about that, one of the interesting things that I'm finding at the moment is COVID has trained everybody to accept that online is actually okay. Now you've got to be careful. We were badly Zoom bombed some weeks back and put in all sorts of protocols to make sure that doesn't happen again. But you know, the audience has been trained to go. The audience, our prospects out there, people who might want to avail of our services, are now much more open to it being a Zoom call than they would have been prior to COVID. A little bit like your man back in 2008 saying, is this the head work, right? And now 2020, people are more open to the head work.
That's right.
So I think COVID has just accelerated all that. Look, great stuff, and you know, we wish you every success. No doubt it'll be fantastic, and it'll be really good work, and it'll be sacred and all that really good stuff, because that's who you are. So I want to wish you every continued success. We'll give you a Bula bus. We're going to go to Q&A from the floor. I love it. I love the mug. We're going to go to Q&A from the floor, Aodan, if that's okay. And whoever wants to ask questions, you might stick your hand up there and I'll call you in. We'll go to Ian in just a second. But before we do, Aodan, please, one tip. What would you say to your nearest and dearest? You will get through COVID, come out in best shape by doing blah. What's that blah for you, please?
Okay. So this is a drum I've been banging for a few weeks, Colm, and it is the fact that what we're going through at the minute is an unprecedented opportunity, for the want of a better word, for us to examine our relationship with uncertainty. Because one of the things that in normal times it generates a lot of suffering for us in the professional world is our weirdly dysfunctional relationship with uncertainty. Because when we're clinging and we get into a lot of compulsions and controlling behaviors, that can create a lot of problems for ourselves and others. And it leads to suboptimal outcomes in the business context as well. So the big opportunity we have here, you know, even though it's net negative, a lot of the stuff, is that it allows us to practice what it's like for us to live and to deal with uncertainty, right? So just that slowing down and asking ourselves, you know, what's happening, what am I noticing? That, I think that as a practice, this gives us a great opportunity just to practice that. There's no one perfect. There's no, I mean, like guys like me have bad days too, you know, there's no perfect human being out there. But this gives us a chance just to improve our relationship with uncertainty. So slow down, notice a bit more, try to suspend judgments, like something happens, oh my God, this is terrible, blah, blah, blah. Just notice it. That, I think that's the big one for me. And I know that was a slightly fluffy answer for a lot of people, but look, hey, that's the answer.
I don't know that it was slightly fluffy. I think it was great. I wrote it down there. We have a slightly dysfunctional relationship with uncertainty, and COVID has given us an opportunity to practice. That's really lovely. There's wisdom in that. Nice one. Smarteregg.com. Forgive me. URL. All right, listen, Aodan, pleasure. We're going to go to Q&A, and Ian Hanna wants to ask you a question. I hope it's a hard one, Ian.
Go on, Ian.
Do my best. Okay, well, listen, fascinated, Aodan. I have to say, so far, I'm enthralled, and I've made lots of notes. I'm a voracious note taker, but I think I'm on page 17 now at this stage. But one thing I've written down, which I love, and I just love the sense of this, is that we're going to experiment our way out of it. I think that's fantastic, and I just think there's so much, like you mentioned the word uncertainty and maybe anxiety and so on, there's so much of that out there, and I get a real sense of the last few weeks talking to people, my own clients and potential clients and whatever. There's just too many people out there, you know, in waiting mode and hoping for the best and waiting for other people, and I can't wait until things get back to normal, you know. I mean, we're not going back. We have to move forward. And so lots of things are changing. So the two things that I'm always thinking about, I'm interested to know your view, like from your business's point of view. I think the whole Zoom thing and the whole virtual thing, it's just a means of communication. You know, it's what we're communicating, and the content obviously is the important thing. So whether we're sitting around a table or going for a walk in the woods or on a Zoom call, it's only the media, it's only the method of communication. So in one sense, sure, it's important. But in another sense, like, it doesn't change what we're talking about. So I'm interested in your view as to what's or what are your thoughts in terms of what's changing, how you're going to help people, or the people that you're helping or are used to helping. What is it that they're going to need from you that's going to be different from the last few years, let's say, if that all makes sense?
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's a good question, Ian. My initial sense of this from the last few weeks is that we need more flexibility and agility in both the psychological and emotional domains. So that's a bit jargony there now, but what that kind of means in essence, if I'm working with someone, is that I will need to spend more time asking people how they are and exploring their emotional reactions to what's happening. Most of the time, let's say in a kind of, in a 2019 environment, you're kind of focused on this and we're going after that, and we're navigating the obstacles, and what about if we did this different with that person and how you feel about that, and that's fine. But there's so much other stuff going on right now that needs to be acknowledged. So you're spending a lot more time on the emotional element of all of that. And I think what's important is just acknowledging that and giving it space, and rather than kind of saying, sure, look, we'll be grand, we'll drive on, we're grandy, and come on, just walk faster there, you'll be grand, shake it off, that kind of stuff. So I think that's part of it. It's almost like you're increasing your budget for reflection within, what's going on in that domain. Does that make sense?
That makes 100% makes sense all day long, because I think the opposite of that is that, and you put it so well, just that let's get on with it, lads. Of course you're ready. Sure, we're here, we're talking, so let's talk business. Whereas we have to maybe just press the pause button and to make sure people are okay before we can launch ourselves anywhere else. Yeah, great. Yeah, I love that. Thanks a million.
Ian Hannon, thank you for that, and I'm delighted it was a nice hard question that just did my heart sing. And then you finished, and then you finished it beautifully with a Spacism launch. Well done, you. Well done, you. Right, I'm going to hand over to Princess Shelley.
Thank you so much, Aodan. I have John Webb O'Rourke, who's joining us in the cafe this morning. You were talking earlier on at the start of the interview, Aodan, about Yankee Fackler, and he said he knows him and he's a great guy. So he popped that into the chat box. And I, like so many of us, which I think is the beauty of the cafe, that we see your biog last night and you've got your industry and your background, and we've all got so much great content and bits and pieces that we're like Ian said, we're voraciously taking all these notes. I have 3 pages of notes here, and just before I go to our next question, I still use that narrative that you mentioned at the start of the interview about when I become a grown-up, I'm in my 40s, and I think we can all relate to that. So I'm glad I'm not the only one doing that. And as somebody who, I'm an entrepreneur myself, and I think we've all done maths on the back of an envelope. So I know that I do fundraising events and dance classes and that kind of thing, shows, and lots of maths, lots of really important work has been done on the back of envelopes. So thanks for validating that. I certainly appreciated it. I think we're ready to go. Lisa Chalfa is joining us in the cafe, and she had a question for you. So I'm going to unmute you there, Lisa.
Hi, Aodan.
Hey, Lisa.
Greetings from Galway. I'm just out getting a bit of air, so I haven't got a pen to take down notes. But I just have a couple of things. You mentioned lean and just in time, and I'm just curious, do you think that they've had a negative impact in light of the current climate?
Wow, that's a great question, Lisa. I would say that some aspects of the, specifically just in time, which maybe is a minor subset of the overall lean philosophy, which I believe has long-term value even post-COVID. Yes, so I think when you take a good idea and you take it to its extreme and you shift the purpose of the idea and put it under that kind of profit-seeking motivation, then inevitably you can get into situations where you're storing up potential problems. And I think obviously that's what's happened now a little bit. But you see, in a competitive environment, so many organizations are trying to stay afloat or compete or just trying to prosper. And it's that competitive force which forces a lot of that, you know, reducing cycle time and just taking a lot of the, for want of a better word, fat out of the process. And that's fine as long as all normal conditions apply. But obviously when the thing is turned upside down, then, you know, that falls apart. So I think what you've asked is a good question. And I think for people who are in the business of designing supply chains and in the business of designing the kind of processes that are more robust and less fragile, I think this is an almighty learning for them. And I think you're right.
Okay, good. Thank you. Another thing I just wanted to say to you, Aodan, thanks very much for that input. I think your holiday from invoicing is applaudable, and it's fortunate, and obviously well done. Obviously not everybody's in a position to do that, but you know, where people can, I think it's fantastic. And I just want to say that I think that will come back to you in spades. I think it will be much appreciated. It's yeah, so applaud you for that. So thanks very much.
Thanks, Lisa. Look after yourself.
Thanks, you too.
Great question, Lisa. That was fantastic and such a really insightful response. Thank you very much, Aodan. It really does, as Colm often says, it's great that we can listen into the various different conversations that go on, and everybody brings something so different and so appreciated. And without any further delay, I'm going to pop you back over to your host, Colm.
Thank you, Princess Shelley. Thank you, everybody, for getting involved in that little section. I love that section because I get to sit back and have a cup of coffee and catch my breath. And so lovely, insightful questions and responses. Thank you very much, one and all. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been my pleasure having this man on. So please, one last time, bull a bus for Aodan Enright, the smartest egg in the room.
I didn't know about that, Colm, but thanks for having me.
Pleasure. Show us the mug one more time. I love it.
There he is, our role model for uncertain times.
Perfect, absolutely perfect. Okay, before I let you all go, let me tell you what's happening in the cafe on the Coffee at 11 show tomorrow. Really interesting guest tomorrow, another really interesting guest tomorrow, and it is young Will Ryan. And young Will Ryan is the current publisher and proprietor of the Limerick Post newspaper. Right? Limerick Post newspaper. We're not messing anymore, lads. This is getting serious, right? And Will is going to come in tomorrow, and I'm really fascinated to hear the story of a family-owned newspaper and the trials and tribulations and, of course, the successes of that journey. So please, if you can tomorrow at all, join us in the cafe for the Coffee at 11 show, where I'll be having a chat with Will. Lovely to see you in the cafe today, Will. And we'll have a chat in a little while, if that's okay. I want to thank Princess Shelley for producing the show once again. Get the Bull of Bus there, I love that. Ian Hannon for guesting as Head of Guest Services, thank you for that. Katrina O'Brien for doing all the wonderful editing work, Editor-in-Chief, making it beautiful tonight. And Aodan, this is when you and I get to watch it back. And so really excited about that. So thank you all for being here. And Aodan Enright, namaste.
Colm, pleasure and honour to be invited, and wishing you continued success with this series, which is obviously generating a lot of value for people. So thank you for doing it.